he is the leader of the free world, and today President Joe Biden turns 81. He was already, of course, the oldest ever US president when he was inaugurated in 2020. But he remains adamant that he will seek a second term in office this time next year.
Well, there have been questions over his physical and cognitive ability throughout his time in the White House, and scenes like this have happened several times. So is it time for the president to call it a day on his 2024 bid for presidency? Well, we're joined now by Greg Swenson from Republicans Overseas, who thinks Biden's health is too much of a concern. And joining us also is Bob Mulholland, a friend of Joe Biden, who says he has what it takes to serve another term. Bob, is he too old, though?
Is what?
Do you think he's too old?
I think both of them are older than most Americans, but there's a big difference between a 2 and a 5-year-old, but not much difference between a 77 and an 81-year-old. I think Biden has proven himself as president, has proven himself in the Congress, and I think he'll make a great second-term president.
Bob, can I just jump in? And I don't have a side on this. I'm just across the pond trying to tell the British people that we think we're messed up. You've got a choice between a guy who's going to end up in prison, presumably, and pardon himself, and a man who appears, with the greatest of respect, to have issues. And I used to laugh. It angers me a bit now. I believe that people like you and people around President Joe Biden should say, you have given 50 years of your life to this country. You're 81 years of age. By the time the next election comes, you'll be 82. He definitely has cognitive problems. Is it not more respectful to say you've done a fantastic job and passed the baton?
Did the Queen retire? No.
Good point.
Recently, Trump was asked, a number of questions, and he said that he beat President Obama in the campaign, and people go, Obama? And then Trump went on to say that it was Jeb Bush that invaded Iraq. So there's problems in any human being talking in front of a camera day and night. So when somebody says, oh, Trump is a smart, sharp guy, nobody in America believes that. But obviously almost half of America thinks they want a thug in the White House. But no, President Biden will do fine. Next fall or September or so, we'll have a couple of debates. I mean, the presidential debates, 2 or 3. And the American people can make their decision. Do they want a communist who's going to outlaw democracy and maybe put half of Congress in jail and ignore the Supreme Court? Or they want President Biden, who's done a darn good job and keeps this economy expanding and improve health care? I think the choice will be clear.
Greg, is the choice that clear? Because, this ultimately plays into the Republicans' hands, doesn't it? It's quite useful for them to be able to replay over and over clips of a man falling down. Ultimately, a man in his 30s can fall down. It doesn't really matter about age. Obviously, there are concerns about some of his speech-giving abilities. But there's, as Jeremy said, the choice between that and somebody who's facing charges in American courts. That's not a great option either.
No, it's not a great option at all. I mean, 75% of Americans don't want to see Trump versus Biden again. And I think that it's almost dishonest for the inner circle around him, or maybe just an act of selfishness on the part of Biden, to run again. 69% of Democrats think he's too old, 89% of Republicans, of course, but 74% of independents. So, 3/4 of the country thinks that his age or his cognitive challenges mean that he shouldn't run for president again. I don't really care about how old he is. I'm more concerned, yes, with cognitive issues, but more importantly, the economic failures, the foreign policy failures, the energy, destruction of the energy sector. So I've got different issues, but I could agree with everybody that the fact that it's Trump versus Biden is not good for the country. I would rather see a different Republican candidate. And I think the Democrats, again, if they were honest with themselves, would understand that Biden would not be a good candidate. Look, right now, Trump is polling up about 2 points over Biden. I know that doesn't mean much a year from the election, but if you look at how Trump polls against a generic Democrat, it's -8. In other words, a generic Democrat, anybody but Biden, would beat Trump by 8 points. And right now, if it's Biden, Trump wins by 2.
Bob,
again, I give or take a few.
Bob, can I bring you back in? Because I'm going to go with Greg because I agree with him. We've talked about age. Let's talk about what Biden hasn't achieved. Let's talk about the economy. Let's talk about money. Let's talk about America. Not in a good way. It hasn't worked out as perhaps the Democrats would have wished it to have worked out. That's a fair criticism, isn't it?
Well, any president comes into office with previous problems, by the previous president. And of course, COVID affected the whole world. Now we've got a couple of wars going on, and that affects inflation. And the United States has actually done better. I'd like to see that UK could get as good as the United States. And of course, in Argentina, I think it's 130% inflation. No, I think Greg has a point, which is that he just made that maybe the Republicans are looking for another candidate. But let's face the facts. New Hampshire primary is on January 23rd. The Iowa caucus is on January 15th. The doors are open. The horses are out. We have two candidates. The Republicans, hey, they may or may not love Trump, but they're going with Trump. And the Democrats, we're going to go with Biden. It's pretty simple. And I think the American people, sure, they go, if you ask them, how's the quality of life? Is it better now than it was last term? No. And American people are always that way, complaining. Many wives in America wake up in the morning and look at their husband and say, Jesus, couldn't I have done better like my mother said?
I never, ever feel like that. Just very quickly, haven't got
Not
long.
my
Greg,
wife.
who wins, Biden or Trump?
Too close to call right now. I hope it's neither.
Bob?
It is President Biden with 270 plus electoral votes.
Interesting.
I'm going to write that down.
Gentlemen, thank you. What can you say about that?
It's fascinating, isn't it? What I don't understand, because what Greg explained there is that actually if they were to put forward any other candidate, the Democrats would win, whereas with Biden, they're going to lose. Why don't they do that? Why don't they put someone else forward?
I'll tell you why very quickly. They had a plan orchestrated by Obama, which was Kamala Harris, who's turned out to be less popular than the less popular person in the entire world. That's why the Democrats are in trouble. That's